Hey, it's Adam Murphy, candidate for U.S. Senate here in Wisconsin. And this morning, while I was in my robe and before I had had my Red Bull and my hair was still all over the place, I commented about the number of, comments that I get talking economics and inflation and how clearly I don't know anything. Well, I like to think I know a little bit. Touch of sarcasm in this video as is in so many of mine. So let's talk a little bit about inflation in 2.5 minutes. Ready? First of all, the idea that inflation is purely based on the monetary supply, right? The supply of money in our system is inaccurate. Is that a factor? Absolutely. So the Fed putting out a ton of money, lowering interest rates, is that something that impacts inflation? It has the potential, but it is certainly not the only factor. And here's why. If somebody throws a pile of money on you, unless you choose to spend it, nothing happens. And in a lot of cases, that's what's been going on for the last couple of years with our monetary policy, is that there's a lot of money being put out there into the system and made available, but quite frankly, corporations are sitting on it, or they're keeping their money and they're using loans and stuff like that in order to handle their investments because it's cheap money. It makes sense. So some of that is arguably associated with inflation, but quite frankly, not much. So there's at least, and here's my notes, there's at least 7 different things that impact inflation. So let me give you some examples. Inflation is based on either demand pull or cost push are generally the two formulas. And here's what that means. Demand pull is aggregate demand. So aggregate is everybody. Demand is how much we want to buy. Aggregate demand outweighs aggregate supply. So for some reason there's more demand. And that can happen when we all have more money. So that's one of the arguments associated with, well, the Fed is printing more money. But that requires having more money in your pocket for you to spend. And that's not necessarily the case. The other side is what's called cost push, where there's the same demand, but there's been a decline in supply, right? So all of a sudden there's less, potatoes available, and so you can't make as many potato chips, and the Super Bowl's coming, and there's, the same demand that we're always going to have for the Super Bowl, but we have fewer potato chips. So prices are going to go up. So 2 different variations. But when we get into government policy, there's fiscal policy and monetary policy. So monetary policy is what the Fed is doing, its ability to lower or raise interest rates, which can affect things, and its ability to put money into the system. Fiscal policy is the government. And people say government spending, and they think that's the big one, right? All this government spending, government spending. But here's the other thing, is that taxes are actually part of that balance of government spending. So when we go back and we look at the 2017 tax cut, that put more money in people's wallets, including the very, very wealthy. Now, again, we now start to get into money and interest and all sorts of things, but there's 2 components there. So that's the start of this. We're going to do a bunch of videos. Ready? Next one.